Ninja Turtles is one of my favorite fandoms of all time. They were literally some of the first superheroes I was introduced to at age 3 to 5 after He-Man and Superman. Hence you can say I've been a Ninja Turtles fan since roughly 1990. And over all those years there have been many versions of the Ninja Turtles going around. So I thought I'd make this video rating all the versions of the Ninja Turtles that I'm familiar with. Now just a disclaimer, these are all the versions of the Ninja Turtles that I'm familiar with, and also these are my personal opinions of the rankings. So if you don't like what I have to say or disagree, then just know that I respect your opinion, as you should respect my opinion. Also, I never really got into the original very first Mirage Comics series by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. So the original Mirage Comics Turtles won't be on this list. The original Mirage Comics Turtles from the 1980s. I was introduced to TMNT through the 1987 animated TV show, like many other fans were. Furthermore, neither will the Archie Comics Turtles be on this list because I never really read the Archie comics either, with the exception of one issue. So just a heads up in advance that the Mirage Comics Turtles and the Archie Comics Turtles from the 1980s and the 1990s won't be on this list. Other than that, most forms of media that the Ninja Turtles have appeared in are eligible for this list. That includes animated TV shows, animated movies, live action movies, and comics. With all that said, let's get on to our rankings.
Who's next?
Starting from the worst, at number 12 we have the Mutant Mayhem Universe / the Roganverse Turtles. I really did not like this version of the Ninja Turtles for a lot of reasons. I knew I wouldn't like this version of the Ninja Turtles when the basic information about this version of the Ninja Turtles was revealed and the trailer was released. It is for those reasons I went to watch the animated Mutant Mayhem movie on a Tuesday in regular 2D when the ticket was dirt cheap at theaters. Now to elaborate on why I don't like this version of the Turtles. First of all, I did not like that they basically tried to cross over TMNT with the kaiju genre and make a kaiju movie with the Ninja Turtles, since in the movie TMNT Mutant Mayhem 2023 they only fight the giant version of Superfly. Superfly is the only bad guy in the whole movie, along with Cynthia Utrom and the TCRI soldiers. But they never really fight Cynthia Utrom and hardly fight the TCRI soldiers in the movie. Like Splinter fights the TCRI soldiers for a little bit. TMNT is about martial arts fighting, and the extent of martial arts fighting in this movie was dodging Superfly's attacks and climbing on him so that they could use the anti-mutagen on him and demutate him, which did not seem very appealing to me. Moreover, in the Tales of the TMNT animated series based in this universe that takes place after the animated TMNT Mutant Mayhem movie and before the upcoming sequel to TMNT Mutant Mayhem, there are no villains. All the characters opposing the Ninja Turtles are portrayed as misunderstood individuals who need rehabilitation over punishment, which did not really work for me. I mean, they took legacy villains Bebop and Rocksteady and made them good guys. Legacy villain Agent Bishop, who was gender swapped to be a Hispanic woman in this universe, and made Agent Bishop another misunderstood individual who needs rehabilitation. All this did not really work for me, as this universe is way too woke. So many of the legacy characters have been changed from villains to heroes, or just from villains to misunderstood characters, and gender swapped, that it makes me think this universe was made extremely woke to try and make it cool. And why would you make anything extremely woke to be cool, when only a small minority of people think when you make characters extremely woke, that's what makes them cool? The only aspects I like about this universe are some of the comedy scenes, like when Mikey pulls Lee the Eel's leg by saying she just named herself Eel spelled backwards, which is Lee, and makes fun of her lack of creativity, which causes Lee to get super mad. That scene was hilarious. And when they show how cute the turtles were when they were regular baby turtles, and how cute all the other animals in this universe are before they get mutated. Hell, even many of the teenage and adult mutants of this universe look kinda cute. And who knows, maybe with the introduction of Shredder being a villain in the sequel movie set in this universe and the possible introduction of the Foot Clan, this universe might get better. But so far for me, it has not really impressed overall. At number 11, we have the Rise of the TMNT Turtles. When Rise of the TMNT TV show was newly released, many fans were collectively agreeing that it was a huge step down from the TMNT 2012 series. So many of the fans are quite united in rating this version of the Ninja Turtles as below average, and I'm definitely one of them. I remember when seeing the trailer for Rise of the TMNT, I was thinking, oh my god, this is definitely the Teen Titans Go version of TMNT, because the TMNT 2012 series was dark and incorporated mature themes, but still managed to appeal to all age groups, whereas Rise of the TMNT seemed like it was targeted to a very young audience. Just like how the animated movies of the second animated DC universe were dark and incorporated mature themes, but still managed to appeal to all age groups, whereas Teen Titans Go seemed like it was targeted to a very young audience. Now I want to say why I don't like this version of the Ninja Turtles that much. Most of the villains were villains exclusive to this series, who no one had heard of about before, and therefore didn't really care too much about these villains. I can't show any more footage from Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles TV show or the movie because YouTube thinks I'm trying to upload the TV show or the movie, so I'm just going to use footage from the web-based video game instead. It was more kid-oriented, reducing the amount of violence that could be shown and lowering the stakes as a result in most episodes. Hence, we couldn't get to see the turtles fighting vicious villains who wanted to hunt them down and kill them, like in the TMNT 2003 and TMNT 2012 series. Honestly, the only villain exclusive to the series that I remember when working on this video in mid-2025 was Meat Sweats, the mutant pig. I always thought Meat Sweats was some weird version of Bebop. Now, many people say that this series was a more comedy-focused version of TMNT, but to that I say I don't watch TMNT primarily for the comedy. I watch it primarily for the fight scenes and the hero versus villain showdowns. Sure, it is good to have comedy, but the presence of comedy in TMNT has always been more of a bonus for me. It is good if comedy is there, but not required. Also, the Turtles use more mysticism and natural abilities to fight the bad guys rather than technology in this universe, which really they don't explain how the Turtles got these abilities, like how it's not explained how Michelangelo is able to open a time window using just his mystic abilities in the Rise of the TMNT animated movie. I think at the time when Rise of the TMNT was airing, they knew this show wasn't well received because this version of the Turtles is one of the few versions of the Turtles for who a video game that is sold hasn't been made, a video game that requires dedicated work. The only video game this series got was a free-to-play browser-based video game, which I'm guessing was made to promote the TV show and the movie set in this universe. Even the Mutant Mayhem Turtles got a video game which was sold, but upon looking at the video game based on the Mutant Mayhem universe, I'm not sure if that is a good thing, since the Mutant Mayhem universe video game looks absolutely horrendous. Now I'm going to say what I liked about this version of the Turtles. They used the old returning characters the way they were supposed to be used, which is what the Mutant Mayhem universe has not done so far. The last episode featured Shredder, and the animated movie that takes place after the second and final season of the TV show featured the Krang species. Both Shredder and the Krang species of this universe are formidable villains who the Turtles actually fight using their martial arts abilities. So both the last episode of the TV show and the animated movie were actually good. But it literally took us 38 very mediocre episodes to reach this far. In fact, this TV show actually used the Demon Shredder better than the 2003 series used the Demon Shredder. because in this series the Turtles actually fight the Demon Shredder in the last episode straight up without a million things going on all at once, and without the Turtles and Shredder morphing into dragons to fight each other, which is how they fought the Demon Shredder in the 5th season of the TMNT 2003 TV show. So to sum up, this version of the Ninja Turtles definitely has some good points, but overall it is definitely a below average version of the Ninja Turtles. Then next up we have the 2007 animated movie Turtles. It was claimed that the 2007 animated movie was set in the same universe as the early 1990s live action movie universe, but since the universe with the 2007 animated movie Turtles looks and feels a lot different to the early 1990s live action movies universe, I'm going to treat this movie's universe as its own universe. The primary reason for me rating the 2007 animated movies universe also below average is that the 2007 animated movie had a lot of potential, but instead of giving legacy A-list villain like Krang or legacy B-list villains like Bebop, Rocksteady, Baxter Stockman, Leatherhead, or the Rat King a chance to shine on the big screen, we got some exclusive for this movie unknown villains who hardly anyone has cared about since this movie released almost 20 years ago, as the statue-like warrior villains have basically made no other appearances in the 18 years after the release of this movie. Hell, I would have even preferred if they used C-list villains for this movie instead of the statue-like warrior villains for this movie. C-list villains like Wingnut, Armagon, Chrome Dome, General Track, Mozart, like just generally the characters that have been beloved by the fandom for a long time before this movie released. Now there are good points about this version of the Turtles for me, so it's not all bad. Again, to pick on the Mutant Mayhem universe by comparison, this version of the Ninja Turtles uses the characters the way they're supposed to be used. The Turtles, along with Splinter, April, and Casey, are the heroes, and April is the heroine of the movie. Karai is a villainess, and the Foot Clan are bad guys. The only reason Karai and the Foot Clan help the Turtles in the end is because both the heroes and the villains are in the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of situation. Or like more specifically in this case, it is the enemy of my enemy is temporarily my friend type of situation, because both the Turtles and the Foot Clan don't want to be ruled by their common enemy, the statue-like warrior villains. I also like the humor in some scenes, like when Max Winter tells April that he's had his eye on her, and Casey replies in the jealous tone, "I knew it." Like, that scene was funny, especially because Winters means he's had his eye on April to be an ally for him and not so that he can be romantically involved with April, but Casey gets jealous very fast because he's not very intelligent. The fight between Leo and Raph is pretty entertaining, which Leo loses on purpose to Raph in order to teach Raph a valuable life lesson, which later Raph even acknowledges when he says to Splinter that he understands why Splinter picked Leo to be the leader of the team instead of Raph, as Leo thinks more calmly and strategically while taking on their enemies, as opposed to Raph, who rushes head-on into fights hoping to win fights using brute force. Also, the success of this movie renewed the interest in TMNT for a lot of people. So we got the standalone tie-in video game for this movie, which I played a lot when I was 19 and 20 years old on my Xbox 360 in 2007. I beat the game and got all the achievements. That's how much I played the TMNT 2007 movie video game back in the day. We also got another Super Smash Bros. Like TMNT game, TMNT Smash Up, which uses the Turtles of the 2007 movie, or the Turtles from a very similar universe to the 2007 movie Turtles, which we can say that without the success of this movie, we might not have gotten TMNT Smash Up. Moreover, I enjoyed and still enjoy playing TMNT Smash Up, as it is a light-hearted, fun, and not very intense video game, since we're looking for which version of the Turtles tells the best stories and show the best fight scenes, I'll consider any version of the Turtles inspiring video games to be made as a bonus. Hence my thinking is it is not required for a particular version of the Turtles to be good if that version of the Turtles did not inspire a video game or video games. But if that particular version did inspire a video game or video games, then that's a bonus. And finally, CW even decided to make a Season 7 for the 2003 TMNT animated TV show because of the renewed interest in TMNT that this movie caused. As far as I'm aware, CW licensed the rights for the TV show from 4Kids and Mirage Studios and made the last season, Season 7, called Back to the Sewer for the 2003 Turtles. This last Season 7 aired in 2008. So to sum up, this movie had low quality villains and hence a low quality plot for me, which is why this version of the Turtles are low on my list. But it had good points also, mainly being how important this movie was to renew the interest in TMNT so that we could get 2 video games and 1 more season of the animated TV show that was running when this movie was released. Then at number 9 we have the Power Rangers X TMNT comic Turtles. Since this version of the Turtles have only appeared in comic form and action figure form, I'll be using the comic art for this section of the video, as that is the only type of media available to us for this version of the Turtles, which leads me to the biggest weakness holding this version of the Ninja Turtles back. They have only appeared in the comics so far, hence we don't have any motion graphics to see them in action, like a TV show, movie, or video game based on this version of the Turtles. So we have to visualize a lot of the fight scenes for ourselves based on the comic art. If this version of the Turtles appeared in any media capable of motion graphics, they would have been higher on my list, but unfortunately as it stands right now, I think the number 9 spot is the most fitting. As for what this version of the Turtles got right, I want to say the story this comic series told was pretty well done. I've only read the first volume and the first saga in which the Turtles and the Rangers team up against Shredder and Rita Repulsa, so I'm just going to share my thoughts on the first volume. Spoilers ahead in case you haven't read the first volume and want to read it. I thought it was pretty cool how the Turtles fight the Rangers for a little bit. Then Shredder basically hacks the Rangers' DNA using Dimension X tech, if I remember correctly, which causes the Rangers to lose their ability to morph. So the Turtles need to morph instead to be able to use the Megazord, which I thought was pretty cool. The Turtles fight Bebop and Rocksteady in their giant form using the Megazord, which is a Power Rangers-like plot with TMNT characters, which was pretty cool. The Rangers use the giant metal head, the Turtles robot, to fight Bebop and Rocksteady in their giant form. Shredder fights the Turtles using the Dragon Zord, while the Turtles use the Megazord. We even have the Turtles in the Megazord fight the Technodrome. And then we have one final battle versus Shredder in regular size in which Shredder escapes with Rita's help. Damn, this comic series is action-packed, which makes the comic series pretty cool. Now moving along, at number 8 we have the 1990s live-action movies Turtles. Now I'm aware that this is a controversial ranking to rate the Turtles of the 1990 movie this low and below average, as many consider the 1990 live-action TMNT movie to be the best any type of TMNT media ever made. But I have issues with the 1990 live-action movie, even by 1990 standards. So all I ask is that you hear me out before you decide to hate me if you are a die-hard fan of the 1990 movie Turtles. As for TMNT 2, Secret of the Ooze, and TMNT 3, those movies were just bad, even by 1991 and 1993 standards. And I'll elaborate more on that after I'm done talking about what I like and what I don't like about the TMNT 1 1990 movie. My main issue with the 1990 TMNT movie is that the Turtles are kind of weak and uncoordinated in this movie. and that this universe of the TMNT is quite low-tech compared to many of the other universes, which is a very good argument my bro made about the 1990s live-action universe being low-tech, so the credit goes to him for this observation. Now, as I said earlier, I'm no expert about the Mirage comics from the 1980s and the 1990s, but all I know is that the 1990 TMNT movie was heavily inspired by the Mirage comics, so was the 2003 animated TV show. And in those first couple of issues of the Mirage comics, the Turtles defeat Shredder during their very first confrontation with Shredder. They did not need Splinter to defeat Shredder, hence I would have liked the 1990 TMNT movie a lot better if the Turtles were competent and strategic enough to defeat Shredder on their own without relying on Splinter. I mean, after all, it is the Turtles movie, so you think that the main heroes would defeat the main villain, but that's not how it happens. Hell, Shredder even acknowledges that he is at a disadvantage in the final battle when he says, "Fools, the three of you might have overpowered me with the loss of but one. Now your fate shall be his." But the Turtles are too uncoordinated to swarm him by attacking him all at once, and attack him like one at a time, which gives the advantage to Shredder in the final battle. My bro also pointed this lack of coordination out initially, so the credit goes to him for pointing this out to me as well when I was a very young kid. Hell, even Raph loses to KC in the fight, in which Raph fights KC. The only type of enemies the Turtles are good at fighting in this movie are the thugs and the foot soldiers, which is pretty low bar for the Heroes in a Half show. Now, what I liked about the 1990 live-action TMNT movie, the fight scenes are pretty cool, especially the final battle versus Shredder, even though the Turtles lose. The Leonardo versus Shredder fight is cool, as I'm a fan of Shredder too, so I guess Shredder winning versus the Turtles is not all bad. The story was nice, dark, and violent for a movie released in 1990, during the peak of when parents were complaining that violent cartoons and violent movies will make their kids violent criminals. Splinter's life lessons are pretty inspiring, as he's basically comes off as the Yoda of the TMNT universe in this movie. Shredder's an intimidating and ruthless villain, which is exactly how he's supposed to be. And damn, is this soundtrack awesome. Like, let's just take a listen for a minute. Is that awesome or what? Now, if we were ranking only the individual movies, then the 1990 live-action TMNT movie would have been higher on my list. But since we're ranking by universe, we have to take all TMNT 1, TMNT 2, TMNT 3 from the 1990s into consideration together as a whole. Which leads me to another point I don't like about this universe. As stated earlier, this universe is probably the most low-tech TMNT universe, which takes a lot of the fun away. Going back to analyze the source material, the original very first versions of the Turtles from the Mirage comics had some high-tech adventures, like the Turtles being teleported to a strange alien planet where they meet the Fugitoid robot. As a Krang-like species, the Utroms build the teleporter that accidentally zaps the Turtles to a distant planet, etc. But we saw none of that in this universe. There were plans to include the Utroms in TMNT 2, The Secret of the Ooze, but they got scrapped, and why that happened is a whole different topic to itself. These high-tech storylines from the OG comics were finally portrayed in the 2003 animated TV show. Now, as for TMNT 2, Secret of the Ooze, oh boy, where do I begin about what a step down this movie was from the first movie? The fight scenes got a lot cornier and lamer, like the Turtles using toys to fight robbers at the start of the movie. The Turtles defeating regular Shredder using a loudspeaker, don't know who the hell thought that was a good idea. Then Super Shredder destroying a couple of lumber beams, which causes a bunch of lumber to fall onto him and kill him. But regular Shredder in the first movie survived being thrown down from the top of a building onto a garbage truck and being crushed by a garbage compactor. Did the mutagen overdose kill Super Shredder? Like, who knows? And I, for one, don't care, as this movie is just so bad. The fight scenes are so much worse, the villains are so much less intimidating this time around, all in all just bad. Research done by fans suggests that the tone of this movie was made a lot goofier and sillier to tone down the violence that the parents were complaining about, which was present in the first movie. Personally, I think those parents should have been told to shut up and stop crying, as the makers had the right to make the movie however violent as they wanted, as that is the maker's right to freedom of speech. Also, Tatsu getting squished to death by being squished by the turtles' shell attacks all at the same time isn't exactly not violent. Like, it's pretty violent, right? So I don't know why that much violence was deemed acceptable, but not good fight scenes like we had in the first movie. The only positives I can think of for The Secret of the Ooze is that it introduced Toka and Razar, who have since the release of TMNT 2, The Secret of the Ooze, become liked C-list TMNT characters. It introduced the ninja rap that's also used in other TMNT music and being used to this day. And it introduced the concept of the Super Shredder that other TV shows and video games refined after this movie. Other than that, to be honest, it was a pretty bad movie for me. And TMNT 3, we don't even need to talk about it because it has a very notorious reputation for being very bad, which most fans are aware of. Moving along at number 7, we have the Last Ronin Universe Turtles. Now, the storyline of the Last Ronin universe is very well done when they focus on the original 4 turtles, Splinter, April, and KC. Spoiler alert from this point on if you haven't read the issues of the Last Ronin that focus on the original 4 turtles. I really don't care for the new 4 turtles they introduced after the original 4 turtles died in this universe. And more importantly, this universe is very respectful to Michelangelo, who's tied for the number 1 spot for me, along with Leonardo, for the best TMNT character ever. So personally, for me, seeing Michelangelo kick ass in this universe was a delight for me, as Michelangelo is the last Ronin in this universe, and switches to wearing the black eye mask after his brothers Splinter and Casey are murdered by Oroku, Hiroto, Karai, and the Foot Clan. Oroku Hiroto is basically the Shredder 2.0 of this universe and uses high-tech assassin robots to do the Foot Clan's dirty work in this universe. This universe is dark and violent just the way I like it. The villains are ruthless and sinister just the way they should be. They decided to kill off most of the original team of the good guys. Leo, Donnie, Raph, Splinter, and KC are all dead during the main events of the Last Ronin saga, which was a very bold move. And I particularly like the designs of the turtles in the past when they were alive. They look similar to the outfits I used for the turtles in Injustice 2. Moreover, I love seeing Mikey, with the help of April and whatever was left of their resistance, single-handedly take down Oroku Hiroto and a bunch of the Foot Clan. It goes to show that Mikey is also good at fighting and shouldn't be underestimated. Good stuff. But unfortunately, like the Power Rangers X TMNT comic turtles, the biggest weakness holding this version of the turtles back is also that they have appeared only in the comics so far. Hence, we don't have any motion graphics to see them in action. Also, I did not like that they introduced 4 new turtles in this universe who hardly anyone cares about. No one can beat the original 4. Those are the only 2 reasons I have for not rating this universe of the turtles higher on the list. Hopefully someday that TMNT Last Ronin video game will be completed and it will be good, giving this version of the turtles more recognition and distribution. But until then, we just gotta wait patiently. Next up we have the Batman vs TMNT animated movie turtles. As I've only seen the Batman vs TMNT animated movie and not read the Batman vs TMNT comic so far. So again, spoilers ahead for those who haven't seen this movie or read the first volume of the comics Also, the Injustice universe is not the same as the Batman vs. TMNT universe. I'm just using Injustice 2 to show the Leonardo vs. Scarecrow fight that occurs in the movie, since I cannot even show the trailer for this movie as it shows up as copyrighted content. I really like the Batman vs. TMNT movie, as this universe is also dark and violent, in which many people get stabbed, cut, and killed, etc. There are also a lot of fight scenes. The Turtles fight Batman, then the Bat Family and the Turtles team up to fight mutated animal hybrid versions of many of the Batman villains. They also fight foot soldiers and the League of Shadows ninjas. And finally, they fight Shredder and Ra's al Ghul. Hell, there's even a driving chase scene in which the good guys are driving the Batmobile in the Turtle Van and have to distribute the anti-mutagen to turn everyone mutated by Shredder and Ra's back into their original human form. So there's a lot of action, which I really liked. The only few criticisms I have with this version of the Turtles, holding it back from being even higher on the list, are we only got this one animated movie. We did not get a sequel in which perhaps the Bat Family and the Ninja Turtles team up to take on many of the TMNT villains. As in the first movie, only Shredder, Baxter, and the Foot Soldiers are present as the TMNT villains. It would have been good to get a video game set in this universe, and no, Injustice 2 does not count as a video game for the Batman vs. TMNT crossover universe, as Ra's al Ghul is not in Injustice 2, neither is Shredder, nor the mutant versions of Batman villains, and even the Foot Soldiers and the League of Shadows ninjas aren't in Injustice 2. And even in this universe, I thought they made Michelangelo a little too stupid and goofy, which I always dislike. I want to see him as a very skilled martial artist who kicks ass and is also the comic relief character of the team. Other than that, this version of the Turtles is pretty amazing. At number 5, we have the IDW Comics Turtles. I thought the IDW Comics started off pretty well before they introduced the 5th Turtle, Jennika. Hardly anyone even cares about Jennika. They introduced her to basically go all vogue because it is a requirement in the media now. The IDW comics had some pretty intense and dark storylines, like the new darker origins for the Turtles and Splinter, Bebop and Rocksteady almost killing Donatello, the whole story arc with the parasitic Krang. All that was really good. I read the first couple of issues so long ago that I don't remember too much by this point. If you're looking for good TMNT media, I would recommend reading the first couple of issues until Jennika becomes an official member of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Those were some pretty good issues. Also, what I like most about this universe is that it's heavily inspired by the 1987 TMNT TV show. We have the Rock Soldiers and the Stone Warriors, who are Krang's minions from Dimension X, who were originally introduced in the 1987 animated TV show. We also have the Neutrinos, who are the good guys from Dimension X, who also first appeared in the 1987 animated TV show. We have Legacy, A-list, B-list, and C-list returning characters. For example, Krang, Bebop, Rocksteady, Slash, Wingnut, and Armagon. And they're all heroes, neutral, or villains, mostly depending on how they were originally portrayed. This universe doesn't use the whole Mutants Mayhem universe's approach of changing all the traditional villains to heroes or just misunderstood characters. I know the Mutants in Manhattan video game is not directly set in the IDW Comics universe, meaning it's not canon with the events in the IDW Comics universe. But since Mutants in Manhattan universe looks pretty similar to and has very similar characters to the IDW Comics universe, we can basically say that we can consider it almost the same universe, just two different realities, if that makes sense. Like how the video games based on the 1987 TV show and the 2003 TV show don't follow the events of those two TV shows exactly, but are still close enough to be considered almost the same universe. Playing the Mutants in Manhattan video game was a huge delight for a long time TMNT fans such as myself, since it felt like getting a 3D video game very similar to the 1987 TMNT TV show. in which the main hench people to fight are the Foot Clan and the Rock Soldiers, and a character such as Wingnut has the same origins that he had in the 1987 TMNT TV show, in which he was an alien invader and used to fly around in a UFO. Showing him fly around in a UFO in the Mutants in Manhattan universe brought a smile to my face, since it was a great throwback to fans of the 1987 TMNT TV show. So all in all, this is a great version of the Turtles, which is also an awesome throwback to the 1987 TMNT TV show Turtles. The only criticisms I have is that it would have been even better to see these Turtles in TV shows, movies, or a sequel to the TMNT Mutants in Manhattan video game. But we got none of that. And also it would have been good if this universe did not go all woke by introducing Jennika as the fifth turtle. At number 4 we have the 2012 TV show Turtles. Now overall I thought this TV show and version of the Turtles was pretty good. You could say this TV show was like the Young Justice for TMNT, which had mature themes, appealed to older audiences who were fans of the 1987 TMNT TV show or the 2003 TMNT TV show when they were kids, or both of those shows, but still also managed to appeal to kids at the time. Going from this show to Rise of the TMNT just felt like going from Young Justice to Teen Titans Go, as in both cases we went from shows that appeal to all ages to shows that were targeted primarily at a very young audience. My biggest complaint with this TV show is that Michelangelo is way too stupid and incompetent in this TV show, especially during the earlier seasons. And he's always getting abused by Raphael, which I pretty much hated. Like, he hardly ever fights back against Raphael. So you can see how this TV show screwed up one of my favorite TMNT characters, who's tied for the top spot as the best TMNT character, along with Leonardo for me. Spoilers alert from this point on if you haven't seen this entire TV show. Another complaint of mine is that the Turtles hardly ever fight Shredder in this TV show. It's mostly Splinter who fights Shredder in this TV show. Hell, during the Super Shredder storyline, even April is the one to use her telekinetic powers to knock Super Shredder off the building and into the garbage truck for Casey to crush him with the compactor, which is a throwback to the 1990 movie. Again, since the Turtles are the main heroes and Shredder is the main villain, you would think that the main heroes would defeat the main villain the most, but no. I literally can only recall 2 times when the Turtles fight Shredder in this TV show. Once when he's regular Shredder and the Turtles get beat up hard, and when they finally killed Super Shredder when he's Super Shredder at the end of season 4. Moreover, the video games based on this version of the Turtles are nowhere near as good as the video games based on the 2003 TV show and the 1987 TMNT TV shows. The video games based on this version of the Turtles were trying too hard to be like Turtles in Time and TMNT, the arcade game from 1989, which was a step down in my opinion, considering all the new tech available to make good 3D games from 2012 to 2017 when this TV show was running. Just look at how good the Batman Arkham games were. So these are all only shortcomings holding this show back from being higher on the list. Now there's tons I liked about this TV show from the perspective of being a Leonardo fan, as he's also tied for the number 1 spot as my favorite Ninja Turtles character ever. This TV show is pretty good, as Leonardo is a kick-ass martial artist in this. This TV show brought back a lot of classic characters from the 1987 TMNT TV show like Bebop, Rocksteady, Slash, Trag, Granitor, Baxter Stockman in his fly form, etc. Hell, this TV show even brought back a lot of the obscure characters from the 1987 TMNT TV show. For example, Muckman, Mutagen Man, Mondo Gecko, Anthrax, Scumbug, the Punk Frogs, etc. Krang became an entire species as opposed to just focusing on one Krang of the Krang species, while Krang Prime, who is a single member of the Krang species, became the leader of the Krang species. Even Hattori Tatsu and Razar from the 1990s live-action movies universe made a comeback in this TV show. Some characters of the 2003 TMNT TV show also got a redesign, like Hun became an homage to Bruce Lee in this TV show. Longtime allies of the Turtles were also in this TV show, like Miyamoto Usagi and the Fugitoid, while longtime enemies even made a return, such as the Triceratons. The show even introduced new characters that were generally well received by the fans. For example, Chris Bradford, aka Dog Pound, who is an homage to Chuck Norris; Zever, aka Fishface, who is an homage to martial artist Jim Kelly, and other examples such as Cockroach Terminator, Neutralizer, and Tiger Claw, who were all new characters introduced in this TV show. So yeah, in terms of fan service and character development in this TV show, it really excelled. While the plots of various episodes of this TV show were also well written, and the cinematography of the fight scenes was also pretty cool. Then kicking shell at number 3, we have the 2003 TV show Turtles. I literally can't show any footage from the TV show because YouTube thinks I'm trying to upload the TV show. If I upload any footage from this TV show, even the intro and outro, so I'll use footage from the video games based on the 2003 TMNT TV show that have exclusive cutscenes, which look very similar to the animation style of the TV show. Now, going from the 1987 TMNT TV show to the 2003 TMNT TV show felt like the biggest change to ever occur among all the different versions of TMNT. The 2003 TV show had drastically different versions of the TMNT characters. The storylines and the tone were quite different for this TV show, and this TV show switched around many characters from the 1987 TMNT TV show. For example, Bebop and Rocksteady weren't Shredder's muscle henchmen anymore. That role went to Hun. This TV show was also different, that it did not feel like TMNT for me when I saw the very first episode of this TV show way back in 2003. So when this TV show had newly started airing in 2003, I saw one episode, thought this TV show was so different that it didn't really feel like TMNT anymore. As a result, I basically dismissed this TV show for a couple of months until I stumbled upon the demo for the TMNT 2003 PC game on megagames.com, as me and my friend used to visit megagames.com for PC game hacks and mods back in the day. Interestingly, megagames.com is still around today. And when I played the demo for the 2003 TMNT PC video game, I was extremely impressed because it felt like you were actually controlling the characters in some of the episodes of the TV show. Since this game was 3D and the previous TMNT games were all 2D side-scrolling beat-em-ups and 2D fighting games, the 3D graphics really made you feel like you were controlling the characters in the TV show. So I got the full PC version of the 2003 TMNT video game for my 16th birthday, and the day it arrived in the mail, me and my friend played it for a couple of hours after school at the cost of starving for a couple of hours, as the game felt so revolutionary when it was brand new. And the first Friday we had the game, we stayed up until 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. to beat the game. We finally beat the game after 5 attempts in total on the last 2 stages. So after the video game left a lasting impression on me, I wanted to watch the TV show it was based on, and that's how I got into accepting the 2003 TMNT TV show. Now, remember how I said my biggest complaint with the 2012 TV show was that they butchered Michelangelo, who's tied for the #1 spot as my favorite TMNT character? Turns out, coincidentally, this TV show butchered my third favorite TMNT character of all time, Shredder. As for the #1 and #2 spots of the best TMNT characters of all time, Leonardo and Michelangelo are interchangeable for me. Spoilers alert from this point on for anyone who hasn't seen this entire TV show. This TV show did something extremely weird by trying to merge Shredder and Krang into one supreme villain, as opposed to having them be 2 main villains together. For lack of better words, in the first 3 seasons we had Krang operating in Shredder mech suits and Shredder body armors, and he was referred to as Shredder. Now, to clear any confusion of the talking brain-like species is called the Utroms, and they predated Krang from the 1987 TMNT TV show in the comics. In fact, Krang's creation in the 1987 TMNT TV show was inspired by the Utroms. So, the Shredder of the first 3 seasons of the 2003 TMNT TV show is referred to as the Utrom Shredder. But let's be honest, for those of us who were introduced to TMNT through the 1987 TMNT TV show and not the Mirage comics of the 1980s, which was most of us, the first thought that came to our minds when they revealed that an Utrom was operating as Shredder in Shredder mech suits in the first 3 seasons of this TV show was that why did they make Shredder turn out to be Krang that entire time? I remember both my bro and my friend seeing the talking brain like Utrom who turned out to be Shredder and then saying, so Shredder's actually Krang in this. And when they revealed that an evil Utrom was being transported in a spaceship, we all thought that was Krang. And since this was going to be in the second season, it was basically the perfect time to introduce Krang in the second season, as the first season focused on Shredder being the main villain. But then that evil Utrom actually turned out to be Shredder and not Krang. Confused yet? That is the point, to try and describe to you how confused all of us were because of this huge change. And since the 2003 TMNT TV show ended, literally every version of TMNT has used Shredder and Krang as 2 separate villains and never brought back the Utrom Shredder. That should be a hint telling us that this huge change was pretty unnecessary. And there are times when it's good to change around the stories and the character traits in a new TV show based on the same characters, and there are times when it is bad. And this huge change was definitely bad because the 2003 TV show got way too carried away by making too many changes. Even the original Mirage comics, which heavily influenced various plots of the 2003 TMNT TV show, had a human Shredder who was totally different from the Utroms in the comics. So it would have been good if they kept the characters of the 2003 TV show like that. If this TV show had a human Shredder in the first 3 seasons, who was totally different from the Utroms, this TV show could have easily been number 2 on this list. But unfortunately, because of this huge unnecessary change they made, I'll stick to placing this TV show at number 3. There eventually was revealed to be a human Shredder in this universe, who was the original Shredder before the Utrom Shredder took his identity. The human Shredder was alive during the feudal era of Japan and got possessed by a demon so that he could become very powerful. He returned in the 5th season of the show in the present day to turn the Earth during the 2000s into feudal Japan so that he could rule over this new terraformed world. But then his final battle versus the Turtles was when he became a dragon, and the Turtles also morphed into dragons and fought each other. They basically went full Mortal Kombat Annihilation with the whole morphing into dragons part. Yeah, it got pretty wacky and convoluted. Many fans were having a hard time wrapping their heads around the continuity and trying to piece together the continuity. That's why they made the 7th season of this TV show similar to the first 4 seasons and not the 5th season. Now, as for what I liked about this TV show, there's tons. The TV show is dark and brutal and appeals to older audiences also. The fight scenes were very cool, and we had a lot of fight scenes too. Most of the new characters introduced by this series were generally well received by fans, including me, like Hun, Draco, the Daimyo, the Ultimate Ninja, etc. This show did a very good job adapting the characters from the original Mirage comics into this TV show, like Fugitoid, Karai, Baxter Stockman, the Triceratons, the Federation, etc. In fact, it was because of this TV show that I became acquainted with many of the plots from the original Mirage comics from the 1980s. So yeah, most of the plots of this TV show were also great, both original plots and adapted plots alike. And finally, I think this version of the Turtles had the second best video game series based on them. Since this is not a ranking of only the TMNT video games, I won't go into a lot of details about what made the video games based on the 2003 TV show Turtles very good. But what I will say is most of the video games based on the 2003 TV show are pretty good. Contrary to the overall negative reception the PC, Xbox, PS2, and GameCube games received because they weren't trying to be like the 2D video games based on the 1987 TMNT TV show. And the reason these games were good was because Konami was making them, as the 2003 TMNT TV show was the last series of TMNT that Konami got to make video games for. 2006 onwards, they started giving the TMNT license to many rando studios who weren't as well established nor as experienced as Konami. That is why 2006 onwards we got many mediocre TMNT video games at best. Other than TMNT Mutants in Manhattan and TMNT Shredder's Revenge, those two games were very good and definitely much better than the other mediocre TMNT games released in 2006 and beyond. Ninjaing in at number 2, we have the 2010s live action movies Turtles, aka the Bayverse Turtles. Now I know a lot of people are going to get mad at me for including these turtles so high on the list, as this is probably the most hated version of the Ninja Turtles ever made, but all I ask is that you hear me out and then decide for yourself whether or not you still want to hate this version of the Turtles, since odds are that most people have probably heard more negative views about this version of the Turtles than positive views. Many of the criticisms I have heard is that any action movie associated with Michael Bay focuses on big explosions and too many long and extreme fight scenes. To which my reply is, and how is that a bad thing? Isn't that a good thing? I mean, I for one primarily watch Ninja Turtles and Transformers for the awesome fight scenes. The story is secondary, like who thinks movies about anthropomorphic fighting animals and fighting robots would be commentaries about injustice in society? Like there's a little bit of commentary about the injustice in society in TMNT and Transformers, like the Turtles and the Transformers being outsiders who are discriminated against by humans for being different, which is what a lot of people feel like if they are different to the majority in many ways. But movies about Ninja Turtles and fighting robots are not meant to be like Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises, in which the villains make good arguments for having a nihilistic view on life because society made them like that. No, movies about the Ninja Turtles and fighting robots are supposed to be fun action movies first and foremost, which is exactly what Michael Bay's Transformers and TMNT movies are. Another criticism I've heard about these movies is that the Turtles don't use traditional ninja tactics like stealth to fight strategically, rather rely on their brute strength and ability to take lots of damage to win fights. Well, I got news for anyone who thinks this way. The Ninja Turtles hardly ever use traditional ninja tactics to strategically defeat their enemies. Even in the more loved and more liked versions of the Ninja Turtles, they assaulted hordes of villains head-on. The only few times I remember them using stealth is at the start of the 1990 live-action movie when they beat up the thugs to rescue April, when Raphael uses his sai to destroy the lights so that they can beat up the thugs in the dark. After that one scene, even in the 1990 movie, they fought in populated areas undisguised and came out in broad daylight during daylight hours. In the 2003 TV show and the 2012 TV show, to the best of my knowledge, in the first couple of episodes of the first seasons, Splinter did not allow them to venture out in the street a lot because of fears they would be seen, thus causing their identities to be exposed. But after the first couple of episodes of the first seasons, they almost always just walked on the streets and the rooftops without worrying about blowing their cover. And in the 1987 TV show, they basically walked on the streets without worrying about blowing their cover at all right from the start of the TV show. Moreover, in all those previously stated versions, the Turtles defeated hordes of thugs, foot soldiers, and aliens using their superior martial arts skills, along with whatever super abilities the ooze that mutated them gave them, which is the same argument that can be made for the Michael Bay Turtles being able to defeat hordes of enemies head-on. So this argument that the Ninja Turtles don't operate like traditional ninjas in the Michael Bay movies, and therefore the Michael Bay movies are bad, is just wrong. And I've already debunked it by giving examples of how the turtles did not operate like traditional ninjas even in the more well-received versions of TMNT. Another complaint I heard was that the turtles in this series are too big and do not look like the turtles from the TV shows and the 1990s live-action movies. I am a long-time TMNT fan who was around ever since the first ever Turtle Mania of the late 1980s and the early 1990s, and the designs of the turtles in this series did not repulse me at all. The only reason they are big is because these movies were going for the big muscular look for the turtles, which I did not mind. And I did not mind the human-like noses on the turtles and the human-like faces on the turtles either, since these turtles clearly have some human DNA. In fact, the designs of these turtles incorporate their personalities too, which is cool. Leo looks like a ninja who trains overtime. Mikey looks like a cool skater dude. Donnie looks like the techie with all his tech gear being stored in his costume. And Raph looks like the big muscle. All of these traits fit each turtle well. Another concern for people was that the actors were abused by the producers during the filming of these movies. There's information surfacing that the actors were paid a fixed amount regardless of the number of hours they put in, like a salary system, and they weren't paid a lot for the motion capture scenes they filmed. Now, yes, this is clearly a problem. Did it mean that everyone should be getting involved and making themselves judge, jury, and executioner by starting campaigns to boycott these movies? No. For most people who face exploitation in the workplace, there often isn't anyone else getting involved to intervene on their side. It is up to the person who's being exploited to take whatever legal action they deem necessary against their employer. In other words, it is the business of the two parties involved, along with any legal representatives, to resolve the matter, not any of our business. Hence, all this cancel culture to get involved in matters that are not even most people's business is total and utter bullshit in my opinion. And many people need to stop having this mentality that they can decree themselves to be judge, jury, and executioner because they feel strongly about certain issues and that their verdict should be enforced. Just no. Also, fun fact, when the stunt people were filming the 1990 live-action movie in the turtle costumes got so hot during some summer days that some of the stunt people got heat strokes. This is also an example of stunt people being abused while filming a movie. But it is not just talked about as much because most people are biased towards the 1990 live-action movie and don't want to share information that makes the 1990 movie look bad. Also in the early 1990s, the stunt people weren't interviewed as much by the media as they are now, and there was no social media, hence news about bad working conditions that actors, actresses, and stunt people faced wasn't as widely spread as it is now. And for the past 20 years or so, ever since the internet and social media started being used widely. The reason I'm talking so much about the actor abuse controversy regarding these movies is to tell people that they should have all the facts before they start campaigns to boycott movies, etc. Now back to talking about the movies themselves and not the behind the scenes controversies. What I liked about the 2014 live action movie was that the turtles seem a lot more coordinated while fighting, especially in the final fight versus Shredder. In the 2014 movie, they actually all attacked Shredder together and used teamwork to defeat Shredder and stop the machine from releasing the toxins in the city, which is exactly how it should be. Not like in the 1990 movie, when they attack Shredder one at a time and fight in an uncoordinated way with each turtle doing their own thing. And in the 2014 movie, the turtles actually defeat Shredder. Thank you. That's what we needed all along. And this is one of the few instances when the turtles actually defeat the human Shredder. Now, many people have criticized Shredder's design in this movie, saying that they did not like the armored suit he uses in this movie that has too many blades mounted on it. But I actually like the Shredder. Shredder fighting in a heavily armored suit that has a lot of weapons on it is a good reason how the 1 versus 4 fight against the Turtles was actually a fair fight, since Shredder has a lot of advantages because of his battle suit. Now, I know the villain's motives aren't the most original, which are to infect the city with a disease they widely spread and then get rich from selling the cure. Feels a little out of place for a Ninja Turtles movie, but this movie did a lot of the other aspects right, so I can cut it some slack for the villains having these motives. Now, as for why I liked TMNT Out of the Shadows a lot, which was the sequel to the 2014 movie, which released in 2016, is very simple. Through TMNT Out of the Shadows, we finally got something in the live action format that was similar to the 1987 animated TMNT TV show. We finally got Bebop, Rocksteady, and Krang in a live action movie after wanting to see them in a live action movie for so many years, and the plot was very similar to episodes of the 1987 animated TV show. So, huge 2 thumbs up for the fan service to longtime TMNT fans. Now, I know it was funny seeing April, who knew no martial arts, like this version of April that knew no martial arts, and Vernon fight Karai and a few foot soldiers and actually win. But again, this movie did a lot of the other aspects right, so I can cut it some slack for being a little ridiculous. Finally, taking the top spot on my list are the 1987 TV show Turtles, as many of you have guessed through the process of elimination and how much I've referenced this version of the Turtles earlier in this video. By the standards of the late 1980s and early 1990s, this TV show was considered extremely good, and it still holds up today. In fact, it was considered so good back in the day that it was literally rated the best ever kids and teens TV show for the longest time, until Power Rangers got really popular. The fight scenes for the time were considered really good, the characters were beloved to say the least. TMNT in the late 1980s and the early 1990s was literally as good as the Marvel Cinematic Universe was considered in the 2010s. And a large part of that success was because of this TV show. The 3-part Season 3 finale impressed me a lot back in the day. Those 3 episodes were definitely the 3 best episodes of the entire series. Watching the Turtles fight a horde of foot soldiers, Bebop, Rocksteady, and Krang, and then using a missile to launch the Technodrome into a portal that was pulling the Earth into Dimension X. Oh my god, pure bliss for millennials. Few TV shows have been able to recreate the awesomeness of TMNT 1987. It is for this reason I highly recommend watching the good episodes of this TV show even today, as many of the good episodes of this TV show are available on the official TMNT YouTube channel to watch for free. Now, I know what some fans are thinking. They're probably thinking, so you had a problem with the lame fight scenes in TMNT 2 Secret of the Ooze, in which they used plastic toys to beat up robbers and a stereo system to defeat regular Shredder, but you don't have a problem with the lame fight scenes in this TV show, in which the Turtles throw pizzas into Shredder's face and use a slippery floor to trip Bebop and Rocksteady. True, there are some pretty lame fight scenes in this series too, in an attempt to tone down the violence because of the complaints received from dumbass parents, but all the fight scenes weren't lame, like they were in The Secret of the Ooze. I'd say this TV show had a split where 50% of the fight scenes were bad and lame, and 50% of the fight scenes were good and badass. For each bad fight scene, like using a lame water hose to fight the enemies, we had an equally good fight scene in which the Turtles cut up the robot foot soldiers into scrap metal. For each bad fight scene, like Donatello using a garbage slinger to hurl garbage at enemies, we had an equally good fight scene in which the Turtles break Shredder's katana and incapacitate Shredder. It's also important to consider they had to tone down the violence because of the idiot parents complaining in order to stay profitable at the time, because they couldn't be like the 2003 TMNT TV show and the 2012 TMNT TV show, because those two TV shows released during a time when more popular movies, TV shows, and video games were even more violent, like Mortal Kombat. So many idiot parents turned their attention to complaining about excessive violence in movies and video games like Mortal Kombat. which by comparison made TMNT look peaceful. And many parents realized by 2003 that they were being idiots by complaining about violence that is not even real, which was definitely a welcome change. Now some fans are probably thinking, didn't Splinter defeat Shredder more in this series too, compared to the Turtles defeating Shredder? Yes, that is true, but that was the case in only the first 3 seasons. After the 3rd season, the Turtles started defeating Shredder when they fought Shredder. And the number of times the Turtles fought the human Shredder in this TV show was a lot more than the 2012 TV show, with varying outcomes. Earlier on in the TV show, in the first couple of seasons, they lost fights versus Shredder. In the middle seasons, the Turtles versus Shredder fights resulted in a stalemate with no clear winner, and in the last couple of seasons, the Turtles actually won their fights versus Shredder. Now, I can understand if people don't like this TV show because of whatever reasons, but no one can deny the impact it had to make TMNT what it is today. We can say with definite certainty that if this TV show wasn't a huge hit during the time it was airing, we wouldn't have gotten all the various reboots that a lot of fans like, since odds are TMNT wouldn't have been as big as it is today without the early success it achieved through this TV show. If I was rating versions of the TMNT solely based on importance, like how they caused TMNT to be a widespread cultural phenomenon it is today, then this TV show would still be number 1 and the Mirage comics from the 1980s would be number 2. And finally, I want to say that this version of the Turtles had the best video game series based on them. I thoroughly loved TMNT, the arcade game from 1989, when it was ported to Xbox 360 with online play. I played it like 5 out of 7 days in a week for 2 months straight on Xbox Live Arcade with other players online in the summer of 2009. Too bad the Cowabunga collection version of TMNT the arcade game sucks. The online connections are really bad, making the game unplayable because of the lag and constant disconnecting. The game has the option to use unlimited lives, so many people just spam infinite lives and god mode through the game without even being challenged or skillful at the game. The Xbox 360 and PS3 versions let each player have 20 lives maximum in the online multiplayer mode, but I digress, as this is not just a ranking of the video games. I also loved TMNT 3, the Manhattan Project on the 8-bit Nintendo Entertainment System, and TMNT 4, Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo, as those 2 games are 2 of my best classic games from the 1990s. And finally, I got into TMNT Tournament Fighters on Super Nintendo just last year, just recently, when I realized what a hidden gem that game was all these years. Plus, there are a lot of amazing fan-made games that use this version of the Turtles that I also love. Now, some fans might be saying that TMNT Tournament Fighters for the SNES was based on the Archie comics and not the 1987 TMNT TV show. That is right. But since the 1987 TMNT TV show Turtles and the 1990s Archie comics Turtles look and feel so similar that we can basically say that they are more or less the same version of the Turtles, just 2 different timelines like we said before. Also, TMNT Tournament Fighters for the SNES was in the Cowabunga collection, which is a collection of video games based on the 1987 TV show Turtles. So we can consider TMNT Tournament Fighters on SNES using the 1987 TV show Turtles more or less. Hell, the video games based on the 1987 TV show Turtles were so good that they re-released all of these classic games in the Cowabunga collection almost 30 years after their original release, in order to allow fans to play these games online and to introduce these video games to other later generations. And whoa, we are finally done our rankings. I know this was a lot of information, but it is good to always be thorough. If you made it this far into the video, I thank you. Hopefully you had fun watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Until then, this is the Mike Factor signing out. Cowabunga and Turtle Power.